For the last 3 years, our next speaker has been indefatigably battling Plymouth University Student Union to create a men's forum. His first meeting with the student union was way back in December 2015, when, initially, there appeared to be some support for the men's forum. He stood up to give his fellow students, who overwhelmingly supported the cause, a voice, only to have his idea rejected by ideological bigots in the student union. I am more than pleased to announce Will Stiles.
It was hard for me to decide what I was going to talk about today, but I've settled on a theme of failure. As you know, last year I spoke before about never giving up, even against impossible odds, and as such, failure has been a very close companion of mine, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I would go so far as to say that I am a failure, because I have not yet achieved my goal. And for those who don't know, my goal is to create a men's forum at my Students' Union of Plymouth. And this is a student union supporter space that would campaign on male student issues, as well as be a place for students to meet and be supported and discuss their issues openly. Just a mechanism, an invitation, a starting point, a platform where conversations might take place that could maybe lead to some change. The first step, as it were. Unfortunately, this has of course been unsuccessful multiple times. I'm just going to take you back into the drama of it with a couple of stories from our campaign on campus to remind you of some of our abysmal failures. The third time the motion was presented to the Student Council, the floor was opened up to anyone wanting to take the lead opposition. And of course, our Student Union President stepped forward with a 3-page written speech filled with absolute lies, misquotes, false statistics, and targeted abuse towards our campaign team, including the accusation that we were misogynists. Never heard that one before. As you know very well by now, this motion was unsuccessful, and this speech we felt was a key part in this. So we released a video which went through each point made and highlighted how it was false, which we of course had to take down because the Student Union told us it was harassment towards the president. Just to give you an example of the kind of points she raised, she managed to drop in a comment that suicide was a women's issue. And the way you do that is what you do is you take the graph we're all very familiar with, where there are 2 lines, one at least twice as high as the other for as long as can be recorded. You then ignore all the data points apart from the last 3, and you're left with 2 little lines. You then ignore the numerical value of these lines, so they are just lines in space, and you look at only the gradient. And what you see is that the women's line goes up a little bit, and the male line goes down a little bit. And there you have it. It's now a women's issue because it's on the rise. Just like to say quickly, that's disgustingly disingenuous. Disgusting. But I should highlight, of course, in your mind you're thinking, wow, this is a complete horrible person, would never want to meet her. But I will specify, or clarify rather, in person she's quite nice. This isn't a story of look at this person and what she does. It's look at students' unions. Look at what is permissible, endorsed, and supported. That's what's wrong with this story here. But that's old news. Those failures are in the past. I'm much more excited to tell you about our most recent failures. Of which there are many. As you know, the Students' Union formally has stated that the Equality Act does not apply to men, and I disagreed, and it was time to do something about that. I'd exhausted, by this point, all their avenues for change. This was it. This had been our plan all along, to gather evidence, go down every avenue, prove that we were willing to play their game and that it does not work. Everything was compiled, everything. A complete timeline of our campaign's actions and the Students' Union's actions dating right the way back to 1988 when they first decided they should create a women's forum, but of course not a men's forum. It was time to officially complain about the prejudice that had been exacted against male students and continues to exist unchallenged. This was the biggest document I had ever compiled, and I pity the poor fool that had to dissect it. This was a formal complaint to the highest level of the Students' Union. We got them, we thought. Now this is it. There is nowhere to hide. We've got them cornered. How did they reply? They didn't, as such. They sent a short, sweet email saying that the matter was closed, that our complaint had not been accepted, and enjoy your studies, goodbye. Which wasn't nice, I'm not going to lie. I mean, we'd invested a lot of it. I personally had invested a lot in that. It was 5 times longer than my dissertation. I was dead certain this was everything. This was going to be it. There was nowhere to hide. And it was very upsetting. I was very upset. I'm not going to lie. I was in tears. It was hard. And I know that that's something a lot of you can relate to, is that you get to the point where you've done everything. You feel justice is about to be served. And then it just isn't. And you've got no idea what happened, where it went. Yeah, it's not a nice feeling. So following this, I had to look at how to take it higher than the highest position in my students' union. I tried the University Ombudsman, the Charities Commission, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, NUS, anyone I could think of. Get this, the university cannot deal with an issue that has not yet gone through the students' union's complaints procedure. The University Ombudsman won't handle an issue that hasn't already been dealt with by the university. To contact the Charities Commission, you have to have permission from the Board of Trustees of the charity you are contacting them regarding, and to falsify information is a criminal offence. The Equality and Human Rights Commission agree this is discriminatory behaviour and advise going through the complaints procedure. And the NUS claim to have no authority over students' unions, especially now they're broke. So that one ended in failure. But that's not a problem, because of this. I'll just read you the title. It's a very important document. Men's Rights Forum Proposal from 2018. But I didn't write this. This isn't mine. This is from Exeter University. I'll bet you didn't know about that. Just as I'll bet you hadn't heard the story at York University, Durham University, twice, Oxford, Manchester, Exeter, UWE, Keele, Staffordshire, Warwick, and of course the one you all know, Plymouth. These are just the UK-based ones I've heard of so far. Students are standing up and trying to make a difference on their campuses, and these happened all within the last decade. When I first did all my research, all those years ago, I was only able to find 2 of these. And so that the next student who comes along can take a stand for equality and use these stories, sorry, it's a bit low for me, and use these stories and have somewhere to go for help, I've started a little project. It's called menoncampus.org. You may have seen me carrying it on my sign. I encourage you to check it out. It's currently just an archive, a source of advice, and a place to access the existing network of students facing this issue. A chance for us to come together. Because beforehand, all these students didn't know about one another. They stood alone. So I propose, as students, we begin to support one another in this struggle. Something interesting is that if all these students had independently of one another decided to do something to help the men on their campus, that screams volumes about the culture they exist within, and it screams volumes of the determination and will of men to do good and help one another. And nothing sums that up more than the most recent entry on this list, from just a month ago at the University of West of England. UWE had just done something very noble. They decided to create a women's forum, and their board of trustees had decided that at the same time they should also create a trans forum and a men's forum. Because clearly they value equality, and this is exactly the kind of thing our students' unions should be upholding. One man by the name of James stood alone. I'm sure you're familiar with this story. He was running to be the only students' union's men's officer globally. His campaign was centered around mental health following a wave of UWE student suicides the previous year. What an inspiration. But like most of these stories, it doesn't end well. He was openly harassed both on campus and by NUS officials until he eventually withdrew from the election, leaving the post vacant. The Board of Trustees are meeting at the end of this month, and it is said they will move to remove the role entirely. Now, James doesn't want to take this further, and I don't blame him. Heaven knows I've been there, and it's a tough situation to be in. But he doesn't have to, because it's something I learned a month ago back in Plymouth, where for me it all started. I was put in contact with a young father-to-be in Plymouth through a mutual friend who had set up a men's group Sorry. Ah, yes, but he was not a student. He was just a nice man. And he invited me to their meetings. What is it to be a man? That's how their session started, with a simple question, and continued long into the night. Simple, thought-provoking. I came back a couple of weeks later, and the group had more than doubled and filled a cafe, small though it may have been. What was so incredible to me was that I'm 22, and I've never in my life seen men choose to come and openly talk about what it is to be a man. It was beautiful. We had 16-year-olds talking with 60-year-olds. Diversity to make Google jealous. And there were, and yes, there were disagreements, but we also laughed together and learned from one another and listened to one another. And these are not MRAs or MGTOWs, they're just ordinary people curious about who they are and what it means to be a man. I spoke to the founder afterwards about what he was doing and told him just how much admiration I had for him. He had done what I had failed to achieve all these years. He was the success story. And he told me, there are two people who have inspired me to do this, and you're one of them. I honestly don't think I've ever felt so honored in my life before. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the reason it is okay to fail. Fantastic, in fact. For every failure, there's a story. For every attempt, a lesson learned, a person inspired. The next person to come along will use that past failure towards their success, just as he did. And there will be more. And there will be more. Male students on campus are increasingly eager to find their place in the world as a man. They want to know who they are, and you will never be able to stop them asking that question. I look forward to reading of the next failure on campus and the eventual success. Rest assured, I will not give up on my campaign, but this was never just my story to begin with. It belongs to all students, and together we will build a better future, one failure at a time. So students, let's get busy and let's get failing. Thank you.